Well, I have finally made my final 53-man roster prediction, and it was so hard to make. You will see some very shocking, interesting cuts that I made, and let's start it. Lions 53-man roster prediction, that should be 3.0 with practice squad. Credit to those websites, of course, for the images. Starting at quarterback, we got Jared Goff, Hendon Hooker, Nate Sudfeld, and Jake Fromm not making the cut. So we're keeping three quarterbacks. And I think this is what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell are going to do. I really, truly believe it. Obviously, I'm not keeping Sudfeld on the 53-man, let alone practice squad. But Jake Fromm had a fantastic game today. But and Sudfeld didn't even play. But I have a sneaky suspicion. Dan Campbell said in one of his press conferences there's a very good chance that they will keep three quarterbacks on the 53-man. So, unfortunately, Sudfeld makes it, but that's what I had to do. Sudfeld, by the way, I just want to point this out. He was like the final guy to make this 53-man. Moving on to running back, I'm keeping four. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sione Vacchi, Craig Reynolds, Zonovan Knight, Jamar Jefferson, and Jake Funk not making the cut. By the way, all the players that do not make the cut that have a check mark, or not a check mark, but a line through their name, that means not necessarily that they're cut from the whole entire video or from the whole entire team. That does mean they could make the practice squad. And also, the names that come first in the cuts means the players I think have the closest shots making the team at that position, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't, but I got us keeping four. I mean, everybody got us pretty much keeping those four. A lot of people, Lions fans, have us keeping that four. Moving on to receiver, I got five making it. St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond, Isaiah Williams, and Donovan Peoples-Jones with Caden Davis, Maurice Alexander, Darius Fountain, Tom Kennedy, and Jalen Calhoun not making the cut. Antoine Green and Traquan Smith are not on this list because they both got placed on IR. I got Isaiah Williams making it. He's been balling out during the preseason, and he is a very good punt returner and kick returner. DPJ only makes it because of his size. He does not make it because of what he's done so far. It's literally just because of his size. And that's the reason. If he was Isaiah Williams' height, he would not be making this team. Caden Davis don't have making it. Didn't do enough during preseason. Had a lot of yards, but didn't have many receptions. So it wasn't very productive. Just all of the yards that he had was bigger chunks. Maurice Alexander had a couple nice last games, but again, he's a small receiver. Don't really need him. Darius Fountain has done nothing. I believe he had a total of 2 receptions during the preseason. Tom Kennedy finally doesn't make it. Just another small receiver. Jalen Calhoun has been struggling during preseason. That's why he does not make it. Pretty reasonable if you ask me. I don't like keeping 5 receivers, but we have to right now. And we definitely need to add a receiver, whether that's a trade, waiver wire, free agency, whatever it is. We need to add another receiver to be 4 or 5. Went on tight end, I got 3 making the team. Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, and Shane Zylstra with Parker Hess, James Mitchell, and Sean McKeon not making the cut. James Mitchell really hurts me not to make the cut. It really, really does. You guys know how I feel about James Mitchell. And Shane Zylstra, I had to have him making it. Finally, a tight end had a productive day during preseason, and that was Shane Zylstra today. So Zylstra makes it. He's not a good blocking tight end, but he is a good receiving tight end. And I think there's a chance to pick up another tight end. I'm just not comfortable with this tight end room. Number 1 and 2 I am, but depth piece, I feel like we can get better than Shane Zylstra. But it's just my opinion. Moving on to offensive line. I got 9 making the roster. Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, Kevin Zeitler, Dan Skipper, Kingsley Ekukon, Giovanni Manu, and Christian Mahogany. With Ko Wosika, Michael Neese, Colby Sorsdal, Brian Hudson, Duke Clemens, Jamarco Jones, and Jake Burton not making the cut. This is pretty reasonable. I almost was tempted to keep 10 offensive linemen, but I just can't, especially how we played in preseason. There's no way I can keep 10 offensive linemen. The fact that Mahogany might get cut is an absolute shame. It's an absolute shame that Mahogany potentially has a chance to get cut. He did not play a single preseason game. because of his sickness, but I do truly believe once he gets an opportunity, he could very well be a starting guard in this league. I watched so much draft tape of Christian Mahogany. I loved him coming out of the draft. I drafted him multiple times. I would love Christian Mahogany at some point to potentially next year to be our starting guard when Zeitler leaves. But it's a shame. It's really a shame that Mahogany has a really good chance not to make this team because of the sickness. I mean, he could go on the PUP list or whatever, but I don't expect that because he was back at practice this week. Shocker here though, not making the cut is Colby Sorsdahl. This is my opinion. From what I saw and from what I tallied, Colby Sorsdahl allowed 4.5 sacks during the preseason. And you mean to tell me he is a 53-man backup offensive lineman? Absolutely not. He was drafted too high. He wasn't projected to get drafted that high. He's projected to get drafted in the 7th or be a UDFA. We shouldn't have drafted him that high. We took a risk with him coming out of William & Mary. Just has not paid off right now. Not saying it won't. Highly doubt it will. But last year at guard, he was horrendous. And so far at tackle this year, he's even been more horrendous. If that's even possible. Which I guess it is. But yeah, Colby Sorsdahl don't have making the team. Everybody, a lot of other Lions fans do. I can't after his preseason performance. Just can't. Other shocker may be KO Delosica here. It's time for KO to go. I've never been a big fan of the guy. In terms of, he's a good practice squad offensive lineman, but in terms of 53-man roster, he is not that type of offensive lineman. He's not good enough to be on a 53-man roster. I'm glad my guy Kingsley, though, looks like he's going to make the team. In general, he started every game for the Lions in preseason, and he did very well. He definitely struggled a little bit more today during the Steelers, but he was going against their number 1 defensive line. So, going to come some flag. Giovanni Manu simply makes it because he's a 4th-round rookie, and I feel like some team would pick him up because if he didn't go in the 4th round, if he was a later draft pick or UDFA, he would not be making this team. I'm just going to say that right now. He didn't have a good preseason performance either, in my opinion. He also allowed a couple of sacks, not as much as Sorsdahl. I think he allowed 2 or 2.5. Still not good. He cannot get off the line of scrimmage quick enough either. He needs to work on that. But I think Giovanni Manu makes his team because he's a 4th-round pick. Moving on to interior defensive line. I got 6 making it. Lee McNeil, DJ Reader, Levi Onwuzurike, Mekhi Wingo, Broderick Martin, Kyle Pico with Pat O'Connor and Chris Smith not making the cut. No shockers here. Everybody has us keeping 6. Yeah, there's no shockers here. I'm shocked Pico didn't play during the preseason. Evidently, a Lions reporter said at one of the games that there's a very good that he will most likely make the team. So, yeah, I guess we're keeping 6 interior defensive line, and I'm a little bit shocked. I'm not shocked that Kyle Pico is making it. I'm just surprised he didn't play one game, at least one game during the preseason. But no other shockers here. You know how I feel about Chris Smith. Again, for the 2nd consecutive preseason, 6 games he's played now. He has not done one thing to impress me. And Pat O'Connor, he was just simply a can body. That's all he was. Moving on to defensive end / edge rusher. We got 5 making it. Hutch, Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, Isaac Onkwu, and James Houston, with Matthew Betts and Mitchell Agude not making the cut. This was so hard. This was one of the hardest positions to figure out who was going to make it. Obviously, the first 3 are a lock. Hutch, Marcus Davenport, and Paschal. But the 2 after that, if we even go with 2 after that, is very up in the air. I had Isaac Onkwu making it. He ended up with having 3 sacks and a forced fumble during the preseason. I really just didn't think he did that great of a job, though, like everybody else is saying he did. He can get some pass rush. He definitely can. I just don't know if he is 53-man roster capable. I think the reason why I have him making it on the 53-man roster is because I don't think he would pass through waivers. I think he would get picked up just to his preseason performance. I'm not a big fan of Isaac Onkwu. I think I need to see a little bit more than what I saw of him during preseason. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't bad. He definitely has a chance to make this team, and I wouldn't be mad if we did keep him. I just don't know if he is good enough in our edge rushers. James Houston makes it because it's James Houston. I doubt Brad Holmes is going to cut him. He did have a sack today, but he still needs to show more. But James Houston is very well just an initial 53-man guy. Like, he might play a couple games, and if he struggles, he's out of here. I mean, that could very well be what he is. We saw that with Bruce Irvin last year. Was here for a couple games and then straight out of here. We didn't sign him to the 53-man. We didn't keep him on the practice squad. He just was out of here. So, moving on to inside linebacker. I got 6 making it. Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, Jerm Rodriguez, and Ty Summers, with Ben Neiman, Abraham Beauplan, and Joel Ayungbanue not making the cut. This is one of the first shockers, in my opinion, is Ty Summers making it, specifically also keeping 6 linebackers. I think we do. Ben Neiman, I don't think played today. Either that's he got hurt, or the Lions are very confident in him. I'm assuming it's more that he got hurt. I thought he had a good preseason. I don't think that he had that good of a preseason to where he doesn't need to play in the final game, but Ty Summers has had a fantastic 2 games. We signed him after the week 1 preseason game. Has been fantastic. He had 1.5 sacks today, and he played very well last week against the Chiefs, and I really do think he makes his team. Whether that's 53-man or practice squad, the fact that he did that good during the preseason, I don't think he would pass through waivers, so that is why I have him making it, because yes, I would love to just keep 5 linebackers, but at the same time, we kept 6 last year with those 5, and Pittman and Ty Summers will be the Pittman replacement. And I've loved what I saw at Ty Summers. I do like Ben Neiman a lot, but I think Ty Summers has done a little bit more. Same with Beauplan, and yeah, I have us keeping 6. That's the first shocker. Moving on to the cornerback, I got 5 making it. Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold, Amik Robertson, Ennis Rickestraw, and didn't even show you guys. Khalil Dorsey with Kendall Vildor, Stephen Gilmore, Rashad Wildgoose, Asang Bassi, and Javelin Gertie not making the cut. This is pretty reasonable. Obviously, the first 4 are a lock, but I have Dorsey making it. I thought he had a very good preseason. He's very well a Dan Campbell type of guy. I would have loved to have Vildor, my guy, making it, but I just can't. I wish he would have played a little bit better during preseason. I actually don't think he played a lot today, which potentially means that he is making the team, and I'm talking 53-man, but I don't know. I think I've liked a little bit more of Khalil Dorsey than I have during Kendall Vildor, but if Kendall Vildor does make it, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to argue with it whatsoever. Gilmore has struggled during preseason. He's allowed 3 big receptions so far during preseason. He allowed 2 today, and he allowed 1 last week, and it was a touchdown last week. And the other 3 have only played essentially 1 game. So, moving on to safety, I got 4 making it. Brian Branch, Fatu Malafanu, Kirby Joseph, and Brandon Joseph, with Lauren Strickland, CJ Moore, and Sheelan Garnes not making the cut. Pretty reasonable here. Some people got us keeping 5 with CJ Moore for special teams, but I don't think CJ Moore stood out enough on special teams or defense to make this team. And I really like what I saw to Brandon Joseph. Studied him a lot during the draft last year, and I think he's done a very solid job thus far as a Detroit Lion. So that's why I have him making it. And I thought Lauren Strickland had a good preseason, but I don't think he had enough of a preseason to make it. Moving on to special teams. I got 3 making it. Jake Bates, Jack Fox, and Hogan Hatton, with Scott Daly not making the cut. That's the first time I've now had Hogan Hatton, I believe, making the team. And I've loved what I saw on Hatton so far in the preseason. He actually played linebacker as well in college. That's another reason why I have him keeping it. It's for some reason, if all of our linebackers go down, Hatton can come in and play linebacker. So that's another reason why I had Hatton playing it, but he also seems a little bit more versatile than Scott Daly, and I don't think he messed up 1 snap. So, and also because of age, Hogan Hatton is like 6 years younger than Scott Daly. Scott Daly was good at the time with us, but needs to move on. Ended last year with a season-ending injury. It's time to move on. It was a good run, though. Moving on to the 16-man practice squad that I always do. This was the toughest part of this video for me to make. This was the hardest part, and it's very different than before in multiple ways, as you can see right now. I have the 16-man practice squad, and on the right, I have 5 new players being added to the team on the practice squad. So I'm not filling my practice squad. I'm only keeping 11 players on the practice squad, and I'm signing 5 new players to the practice squad that have not played for the Lions yet. And that's because I don't like what I saw enough out of some of those guys that were worthy of making the practice squad or 53-man roster. I mean, it was such a tough decision. Here we go. I got Jake Fromm making it at quarterback. I got Zonovan Knight, Jermar Jefferson making it. Caden Davis, Darius Fountain making it. Parker Hess, tight end / fullback making it. Colby Sorsdahl, Brian Hudson, Mitchell Aguadu making it. Kendall Vildor making it. And Stephen Gilmore with a new player being added that I wanted to be a cornerback or safety. Another new player being added, which would be a receiver. Another new player being added, which would be a defensive tackle. Another new player being added, which would be a defensive end. And another new player being added, which would be an offensive guard. That's what I would do. Because I thought that made reasonable sense, because Lions and a lot of other teams always add new guys to their practice squad that have not been on the team before. So that is the reason why I did that. Because obviously we'll add a couple players. I don't know if we'll add that much amount of players, but I mean, really, I think that we might have to. I'm keeping 2 running backs. I thought Zonovan Knight had a good preseason. I thought Jermar Jefferson did enough today to make the practice squad. Caden Davis, I don't think I would have liked to have seen more of him, but I think he makes the practice squad. I think he clears through waivers. Darius Fountain makes it because of his size. He did nothing during preseason, but he had a very good training camp, and because of his size, he makes it. Parker Hess makes it because he can play fullback. I would have had James Mitchell making over him, but I don't think James Mitchell will pass through waivers. Colby Sorsdahl, Brian Holmes draft pick. Brian Hudson, I thought has had a very good preseason. Mitchell Agude, because I think I was a little bit underwhelmed with Mitchell Agude for the preseason, but I still like him enough that I think he makes the practice squad. Young player as well. Kendall Vildor, because I like Kendall Vildor. Studied him a lot last year. I think he's very underrated. A lot of people hate on him too much. Stephen Gilmore, I think just barely he passed through waivers because they had a little bit of a disappointing preseason. And then the 5 new guys being added. Obviously, David Bott is no longer on this list because he got hurt in week 1 of the preseason. So I think he still is on the Lions, but he already got placed on IR, which means he's out for the year. I could be wrong on that, though. Don't quote me. But that's the 16-man practice squad. And now we have, this has changed from before. It was notable roster cuts before. Now it is listing every player that does not make the practice squad or 53-man roster for the Lions. There's a lot of them and a lot of shockers. Not making the team, 53-man or practice squad. Jake Funk, Tom Kennedy, Jalen Calhoun, Maurice Alexander, James Mitchell, Sean McKeon, Jamarco Jones, Duke Clemens, Michael Neese, Jake Burton, Matthew Betts, Pat O'Connor, Chris Smith, Ben Neiman, Abraham Beauplan, Joel Ayugbunwe, Rashad Wildgoose, Asang Bassi, Javelin Gertie, Lauren Strickland, CJ Moore, Sheelan Garnes, Scott Daly, and Ko Wosika, with John Kaminsky and Emmanuel Mosley still on the roster right now, but they will get placed on IR in a couple of days when cuts have been set and done. So that is the 53-man roster, my final 53-man roster with practice squad for this year. Leave your thoughts, comments down below. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not very sold. I'm really, really not. The fact that I have to have 5 players, new players added to the practice squad is a very big concern. And if I did not fill out the 53-man roster prediction, I would have had an extra 1 or 2 guys. I would have only had about 51 guys on the 53-man roster prediction. Obviously, you always start out with 53, and then once you add guys during free agency, then you make those corresponding moves. But we still need to add a lot of players to this team. There's no excuses. Obviously, we add guys to the practice squad, but I'm talking about depth pieces purposely. Starters are completely fine. I still would like another defensive end, like a Yannick Ngakoue. But or potentially another new safety, like a guy like Micah Hyde, Ryan Neal, or a corner like a Dory Jackson, a Ahkello Witherspoon. But specifically because of depth, I'm not sold. I did not like I did not see enough. I liked what I saw out of the players I did see, but out of the players that should have performed, that didn't perform, I'm not sold. I'm not sold. I don't know if Hooker's ready. I think he can be ready. I like what I saw out of Jake Fromm, but I think very well we could bring in another quarterback. Really, the only couple positions that I'm like, oh yes, I'm 100% sold on him. We don't need to add another guy. Would be running back, linebacker, defensive tackle, and that's probably it. That is probably it. I mean, every other position I consider adding a player to. Defensive end, another position would be, or another player would be nice to be added to. Another corner would be nice. Another safety would be nice. Another kicker to the practice squad would be nice because Jake Bates is our kicker right now. Another quarterback, another receiver, tight end, offensive lineman. We need more depth. We need more depth. No excuses. I'm assuming we'll bring in one or two more guys to make the 53-man roster that have not been on the team before, whether that's the guys I named or somebody else. And, of course, we'll bring in new guys on the practice squad, new faces on the practice squad. But, yeah, last preseason was very good because I saw a lot of what I liked, but from a lot of players. This year, I saw the players that did perform. I liked a lot what I saw, but there was not enough players that I saw that I'm like, oh, yes, like what I was last preseason. So, leave your thoughts in comments down below. What would you change? Who would you potentially add? Would you agree with the practice squad? Leave your thoughts in comments down below. One Pride, go Lions. Oh, roster cuts are going to be tough. We will be covering the roster cuts the whole week. If cuts happen during the day between around 3:30 and 7:30 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, I'm at school for that time period, so obviously I won't be able to cover it until I get home. But so if it's a little bit late, that's why. But one Pride, go Lions. I will see you all when roster cards start to happen, which could very well be tonight. That's why I'm putting that out here now. One Pride, go Lions.